Thomas, we need to go. Welcome back, everybody. We're back in Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs. It's Friday, January 30th. And we welcome, join us on S207, an act relating to prohibiting surveillance pricing, a new subject area for us, and always a senator who entertains the cutting edge.
Yeah.
We welcome Rebecca White. Senator Rebecca White, take it away.
Thank you for that introduction, and good morning, senators. Nice to see you guys. Since there's like the three of you, I guess I'll just kind of chat a little bit more informally.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Rebecca White.
Yes,
I will. Windsor County State Senator.
Hey,
I'm just kicking it off. So if you are at all someone who purchases things online or goes and looks at flights or even takes an Uber, this bill will be relevant to you.
but also Hannaford has just been under fire for this tonight. Just
Okay,
learned
let's
that last
get
night.
it.
Even your grocery store, as Senator Rompinsdale has already rightly pointed out, could be potentially using the tactic of surveillance pricing. Surveillance pricing is when a company takes data about you, whether that be information related to your income, it could be your personal, as personal as I've got a couple examples, but it could be your browsing behavior, for example. But essentially, companies are using your pain points to decide the price of a good or a service, not based on the demand for that product. So they can individualize the price of a good or a service to you using data that they have collected or purchased. That should be very scary, because that means the price of something is extremely variable and it's not fixed. Like if you were to go into Best Buy today and you saw a TV and it was $500, and then you walk up to the register and the guy in front of you is actually being charged $450. And then the guy in front of him is only paying $350. And there's no sales sign, there's no special discount, there's no loyalty program that they're a part of. Well, that would make you pretty mad. And that essentially is what we're trying to do in S207, is to prevent those types of underhanded corporate tactics, in my opinion, that use data against your better interests. And I think what we can do by passing this bill is set a standard to protect Vermonters against that kind of corporate surveillance tactic. So we're protecting their interest, and we're also saving them money. Because even if you aren't the person whose pain point is the highest, they're still able to inflate the value of that entire good when they can change the price without you having a fixed amount that you can see. So it's very scary. There's a lot of information out there about it, and there's a couple other states working on bills. New York has a bill that I think Governor Hochul, there's a whole conversation about it in New York as well. They're moving forward with legislation, but I think Vermonters deserve protection as well, so especially when it comes to consumers.
Has any state actually passed this yet, this protection? Because this is all under our consumer protection umbrella.
Yeah, no, my understanding is that the One Fair Price Act, which has some momentum. Oh, I apologize. It was introduced by Kirsten Gillibrand, so it was introduced in Congress.
So it's
not in your state. But it's called the One Fair Price Act, and it bans companies from charging different customers different prices for the same product based on personal data. So it's essentially the same concept.
Right. And I can, and we're going to learn obviously more on this. We would appreciate some, if we take this up, witnesses that we would want
Sure.
to, so we'll work on witnesses.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, how does let's say a grocery store even know who I am? Because
Oh, wow.
no, other than the fact that your local grocery store knows who you are. But if you're just checking out, your stuff goes through, they don't know who you are until you pay.
So I see the hypothetical you're asking. Think it more like Instacart, where let's say
It's online that this is most insidious.
Yeah, because you don't see the price changing like you would in a physical store.
Right.
However, there are a lot of concerns about how grocery stores are moving towards online purchasing, whether it be through the Instacart app or not. They could be changing that price. They know you love a certain brand of tea and then you buy it multiple times a week. Well, they're making it $5 for you and $2 $10 for May. And you don't see that because you're not on my app. So that's a little bit of the real aspects of it in the consumer experience. Now, if you go into the grocery store, they are changing to digital price tags. I mean, I don't know. I think there's ways that they could be using it, and we should nip it in the bud now before it becomes something that we're seeing in a grocery store.
And there's two scenarios I'm trying to understand for like loopholes or just how it's addressed. Number one, I learned about this last night, so I won't keep mentioning the name of the company, but it sounds like it was different prices in different stores. So, and this is a huge equity issue that comes up in the country about actually like things can be higher price of something in lower income areas, which
That's been for a long time.
Right.
That
Well,
has been for
so
a
let's
very long time.
maybe pay attention to that too, because I think that's coming to Chittenden County, and that's the concern that's been raised. And then two is VPNs. And,
What's a VPN?
a VPN is, Tom can explain it.
They're not affected by it.
Okay, I mean, I guess what we're trying to say is if you will have the same pricing in the United States, right? Because a lot of people get VPNs to buy a plane ticket that looks like they're from another country where the plane ticket's going to be cheaper. Right now, that's a loophole that they can exploit. I'm not, I just don't, we can't really do much about the international nature of the internet, I would imagine.
Oh, I thought you were trying to say, would VPNs be required to meet certain regulatory?
I don't know, like that's just a
yeah.
huge loophole in everything that like I have been on the side of the consumer getting like a cheaper
Yes.
flight, but
Yes, I see what
Okay.
you're saying. How do we, so it's more of a question of how would we regulate these companies if they're not baked in their operation in the United States?
Mhm.
And at that point, I don't know.
no,
Like,
it's not,
I'm,
it's not that.
that's a,
If you can change your location to another country
yeah,
to get a better deal.
yes.
So that they could be hurt by this if we're not paying attention to how, like, if that's gonna be not allowed anywhere.
So I think as we go into questions, unless we have questions for Rebecca in terms of why she
Oh, yeah.
sponsored this, do you have a question for Rebecca? Okay, great. Then we're gonna invite Mike. We're gonna invite Mike up because Mike maybe, yeah.
More interested in intent. So this has, you brought the example up of a online purchase. It's a national effect, not just a state effect. How do you enforce something which we have national distributors when we're just one small state? How do you
Oh,
enforce it?
well, I would just say when we pass laws, for the most part, corporations tend to follow them. I just say that. I mean, that's why they come and lobby to us and say, I don't want you to do something. It's because they do follow the law. So I'd say a lot of national distributors, if they were to be selling in Vermont and knew that they couldn't use this tactic, could geofence this location and limit the use of that tactic in our state. And I think they would follow it. Can we, shake our finger and go get every single one of them who doesn't do it? Maybe. I mean, but that's for the FTC to
How do we
regulate,
police
not
it?
me.
Or how do we?
I don't think we need to police it
Well,
necessarily.
we have many things that are Vermont
Oh, but there
specific.
is actually an enforcement mechanism in here. So I would refer to the bill itself, actually, because there is an enforcement mechanism under the prohibition with violations. It's very simple. It's that the Attorney General, essentially, if something's deemed a violation of this subchapter, a consumer would basically, it expands consumer protection, right? Under my understanding.
So no PRA,
Let's get Mike in.
No,
for-
I'm sorry.
no private right of action.
No, there is a private.
There is a
Yeah.
private right of action.
Wanna
And
take that?
that's appropriate.
Mm.
That is, we have that in our consumer protection.
Well, there's a
authority.
PRA built, there is a built-in PRA to the Consumer Protection Act. We do not need to spell it out. So it's not spelled out in the
Okay,
law.
let's get Mike in.
It's
Oh.
built in to the consumer protection.
So there's no additional spelling out of this in the law. It
Okay.
goes
Just
to the
cross
AG.
references that.
Mike, would you
Okay.
introduce yourself and join back up?
Can I, do you mind if I wrap up my one final thought
Yes.
before you, because I'm gonna go back to my.
Because you are vice chair of
Yes, so I'm
transportation.
gonna head back there now. But I did just want to say thank you for taking up the bill. I know that we're all online digital consumers and this will protect our constituents from predatory practices. And you're gonna hear from a lot of lobbyists from companies saying that they're gonna be affected, and you're gonna see some shiny shoes in the room on this topic. And I really just hope that we can think about the folks who are gonna see jacked up rates for goods and services if we don't have this in the
Can I
budget.
just ask a question, Jen, in terms of
Oh,
what the intent is? Is the intent to ensure that you have in effect the same price being charged for something that is purchased within the state, regardless of where it is purchased? Is that part of it?
No, the idea is that if you, Randy, walk or purchase something online, it's the same price that David would pay. And the same price that Allison would pay. And that them having specific information about you wouldn't increase.
That's solely that an online purchase as opposed to a purchase in a particular store or outlet of that dead good that you found out the price online.
Yes, I think I see what you're saying. Yeah, the physical locations are not quite impacted by this bill yet, I would say. It's more because you can't know what someone else is paying independent online, but you can know when you are in a physical location.
Right.
So, but I do think we could see a crossing over to physical locations if we don't prevent it online as well, because it's a very profitable tactic potentially for businesses.
Great.
But
Thank
I
you.
love that question.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. And already there's differential pricing depending on the store who's selling it. And
Yeah.
and we already have
What's on
differential
our
pricing. So we would have to, that's a huge topic. Becca, thank you. This is
Thank you for letting
some
me.
cutting edge and protecting Vermonters, and thank you very much. Michael Grady, we welcome you.
Good morning. Before I get into the bill, I just want to discuss some concepts.
And introduce you.
This is Michael Grady, legislative council. And why am I here? Because I normally don't come to your committee, and I don't come to your committee on consumer protection issues. So why is it me?
We're glad it's you.
Because I impart staff agriculture, and agriculture is the agency in the state that regulates weights and measures. And pricing is a weight and a measure component that's part of their jurisdiction. And one of the things that they do is that they enforce unit pricing and advertise pricing. So when you go to the store and you see what a unit price is or what the label price is, and you go to the checkout and it scans at a different price, that's a violation. And they actually do go into stores. They have an inventory of advertised prices and they check those. And that there for a while, there were a couple of violators, frequent violators who would not conform because it was easier for them to pay the penalty than to conform. But they've moved to enforcing unit pricing and pricing at the cashier, and that's working well. What is happening now is the use of AI, and it's coming into play. And it's coming into play in two ways. One is called dynamic pricing. It's when you are actually in the store and they use electronic price labels and they change the price of the product while you are in the store. So you get it off the shelf and it reads one price. You take it up to the cashier and it cashes out at another price. They are not violating the current law right now because when you brought it to the cashier, it is the same price that's labeled on the shelf. And so
That is so insidious.
So the Agency of Agriculture has been working, well, let's step back. Many of your agencies work with national associations on the specific issues that they work on, like wastewater. There's the New England wastewater, whatever, NUMEPIC. You know, there is a group that works on national uniform pricing. And just this summer, they worked on dynamic pricing. And they're going to bring forward most likely legislation to address dynamic pricing. So you're going to see that. But what surveillance pricing is, it's the use of your personal identifiable information or an aggregate that places you in a group so that they can use that aggregate information to change the price that is offered to you. And so they might know that you buy a certain product every week. And they might know that from your use of the app, They might know that from your rewards card. Because Chair, you said, oh, they don't know who I am when I check out. As soon as you scan that card, they know who you are.
Correct, but right now, you
Right,
can't, that
You
would
can't,
change
you're-
your price.
unless it dynamically changes.
Unless it dynamically changes it, so you could have two things working at the same time.
Right.
Got it.
So this is about, and it's not about you changing your information in order to get a better price, by changing the location where you are located when you are purchasing. That's not them using your personal information to change the standard price or deviate from the standard price.
Right.
And with regard to enforcement, the Supreme Court, US Supreme Court has said when retailers consume, people selling products use the internet to sell you a product, they are reaching into the state and they are providing contacts with the state. And that's important because states only have enforcement authority when they have regulatory contacts over an entity. So that's why you get to tax
Yes,
internet products. That's why you get to dictate, the type of products that come in through internet because they have regulatory contacts with you that the Attorney General can enforce. And I'll give you an example. Years ago, the Attorney General was trying to enforce the use of the word Vermont and a Green Mountain or any other thing that was identifying the product as being from Vermont, but it actually wasn't from Vermont.
right.
There's a company that sells Vermont curry.
That's right.
So I am a huge fan of Vermont curry,
I know,
and
but it's
Japan
not,
loves it, so.
It's in Japan. It is
It's made in
from
Japan.
When you go to Japan, they will come up to you if they know you're from Vermont and say, Vermont curry, I love Vermont curry, and you're like, what's Vermont curry, and where can I get some?
The Attorney General was sending that company letters saying you cannot appropriately using that term when it is being sold
right,
in the States because it was not being manufactured
here.
in Vermont. You can still, it's still on the shelves.
I buy it all the time.
So.
You should have some.
Yeah,
Very good.
we have to have our committee dinner, everybody.
And it
So-
makes Vermont famous.
So, Mike, let's,
So that there is enforcement authority. We're not talking about dynamic pricing. We're talking about surveillance pricing. And so when you look at the bill, one of the things that Rick and I decided on doing is creating a new chapter in Title IX, new chapter in consumer protection about the use of artificial intelligence. Because you've already heard right now several different ways AI is used, and it can be probably will be used in other ways. So Rick thinks it's best to create a new chapter, and so we're creating a new chapter about artificial intelligence for
which is
consumer-
chapter 118.
Yeah, consumer protection.
So that would help it apply to like Amazon as well.
Well, it not necessarily. It will if Amazon is going to be using surveillance pricing and collecting personal information about you. But it's not necessary. This is to help with all the future AI coming that will be
Okay.
affecting consumer.
Right, this is preparing us for the
Right.
future. Dave,
I would submit that you don't need AI to do this.
You don't, but it's easier to do it.
which is why.
Okay, I'm just playing devil's advocate, right? This isn't necessarily a good spot for surveillance pricing because the perpetrator may not have any need for AI to exercise this capability.
It would be much harder to do this without AI.
Right, and I'll give you an example that is exempted that you use most likely every year of your life. Insurance is surveillance pricing.
Yes.
The product changes depending on your circumstances and personal information that the insurance provider has about you. So that is surveillance pricing, but it's being exempted from the prohibition, and it doesn't necessarily need AI to set that surveillance price.
I'd also submit that every plumber, carpenter, snow removal guy, they're all doing the same thing. If you live in the big house, get 10% off. You know, it's just.
Anyway, that hasn't happened for us yet, Tom.
You see it as a more framing to recognize that there's surveillance pricing that where prices are lowered all the time. Like, so you get the manufacturer's suggested retail price on the car lot, and there's always negotiation there. Also with rewards, they lower the price for me once I recognize who they are. But the concern here is using surveillance data collected to charge higher than a manufacturer or what the displayed price is.
Right.
Is there a distinction there worth highlighting?
Well, discounts and your membership in a club and et cetera, that's accepted because you
Have voluntarily joined the membership group and
and the services, this applies to commodities and consumer products. So it's not about the professional services that are being provided.
but I think David's point is good when we all have to really look at our service pricing properly and carefully and negotiate it.
If we ban this, I could see the companies always wanting to have a much higher manufacturer suggested retail price so that they can just do a lot of different mechanisms to discount to
That
a
would be,
level. So that's what's gonna happen anyway.
that would be
There always be a
Broadway
way to
ticket
make money.
pricing.
Yeah.
That's Broadway ticket pricing, right there. Okay, Mike.
So aggregate consumer information is information that relates to a group or category of consumers from which the individual consumer information has been removed. And it's not reasonably linkable to any consumer or household. It could still be used in setting that surveillance price. Consumer is any purchaser of a consumer product. Consumer commodity has a pretty broad definition. It's any food, drug, device, or cosmetic or other article, product, or commodity. It does not include prescription drugs. And then a consumer product is any product that is regularly used or purchased to be used for personal, family, household, commercial, or business purposes. They're not services, but it's pretty much any drug, device, or cosmetic that's not a prescription drug. Covered information means your personal information or the aggregate. And then for electronic surveillance technology, it's a system, software, or process using machine learning, statistics, or other data processing used to collect, capture, record, retain personally identifiable information. Personally identifiable information, we're using the definition that's in the chapter that protects personally identifiable information. And that is the consumer's first name, their first initial and last name in combination with one or more of the following digital data elements: social security number, driver's license number, financial account number, password, unique biometric data, genetic information, etc. So that is what you're talking about. That's the type of information that's being used for surveillance pricing. Now, the standard price is the price of a good or service that's set for all consumers. That's not based on the use of covered information. And surveillance pricing is using that covered information through electronic surveillance to set the price of a consumer product that differs from the standard price. So on page 3, except for the exception, some of which we've already talked about, a person shall not use surveillance pricing to distribute, sell, or offer for sale a consumer product in the state. Surveillance technology, set a surveillance price, it's different from the standard price that's offered generally. So covered information, personally identifiable information collected by surveillance technology to adjust for the price that's being offered to you.
Is standard price a new definition to this bill? Or is we have to find that elsewhere in statute? I see the definition here, but is this a common frame that is, it seems like there's a lot of interpretation
I
of the
don't-
standard prices.
I think it is used elsewhere. It's not used in the unit pricing chapter. I would have to go and look at the dynamic pricing. I do think it's in the dynamic pricing language that association looked at this summer. So I will have to check that.
It just seems like a very vague term.
Yeah, thinking about Senator Chittenden's point, standard pricing, you could circumvent this whole intent of this bill by setting a standard price and then reducing at various amounts based on personally protected information. Have just the opposite effect of what you're intending to do.
Make people have to identify themselves and give up that private information in order to get the discount, which a lot of people
Or they
do.
don't get the, they give up the information, they don't get the discount, but you give the, anyway, that's where they can do the
But that's-
variability,
That's,
as opposed to going up, not.
yeah, but that's equally bad. I mean, I think they have to,
Equally-
that's a quick protocol. It's not pleasant.
How do you circumvent that loophole?
We don't regulate pricing in a free market, so I mean, we're not gonna tell them that they can't,
But
yeah.
But that, you can, what would be prohibited, say, they know that this consumer is a yield seeker. And this consumer will buy this product if it's just 10% lower than it is standard price. They might offer that to you, but then they might offer it to the next purchaser consumer at a higher price because they know that consumer buys that product every week regardless of the price.
So they just keep it at the standard price. Yeah. And then
They kept it at
they
standard
still have the
price.
same effect.
Well,
They make their,
let's find out where the standard pricing came from and what it, I mean, this is defined. I mean, I see your point, and that taking it down, nobody would necessarily be as upset about it. On the other hand, to take it down only if you offer precious information that you don't want to give up.
That happens now, though.
Yes and no, I don't think so.
So let's talk about
I
some of
mean,
the
you're right,
exceptions.
10% if you give me your email.
Yeah,
Yeah,
At the
no, I
grocery
agree
store,
with
I
that.
get a huge discount when I tell them who I am.
But let's
That's-
talk about these exceptions because that's part of
Yeah.
part of it. So what is accepted from the prohibition is that the difference from the standard price charged to the consumer is based solely on the cost of the person providing the consumer product to that consumer. Their transportation costs. If you're shipping it to Alaska versus shipping it down the road, the transportation cost is different. That is not surveillance pricing.
No.
Also, what is not is the difference from the standard price is a discount offered to all consumers on equal terms, providing your email address in a manner consistent with applicable anti-discrimination laws.
That's you, baby.
So if the person gathers personally identifiable information in connection with the provision of this discount, which they might do based on the consumer's purchasing habits, the person shall ensure both of the following. We get a written notice describing the terms of that, which you would see in like the terms and conditions of entering a discount program or membership club. And the consumer provides written affirmative consent for any purpose described in subdivision A for the consumer's personally identifiable information for that purpose. So there are discounts
Right, discounts are that.
and they can use your PII if you consent to them.
Comments.
So thank you, I get that. And
Everybody knows who Thomas
I
is.
could restate my previous point, but I think what I'd rather shift the conversation, or my larger concern is, and I've heard that New York City was taking this up, but maybe you're like, I think it intersects this topic, that AI agents have been used to price models, which has been in a way circumventing antitrust laws because it's not an entity or a person. That doesn't fall into this scope, but is there another bill floating to that?
No, I don't know. I do know what you're saying, and I could see, because basically you would use AI to collude on the pricing that's being offered in an
Exactly.
area or neighborhood or et cetera for a product. This isn't that.
Yeah. That I have valid concerns over. This, I just think the market in Vermont did this. Everybody, all the prices go up online and you have to qualify who you are so they can step it down based on what you're. So sure. I gotta go. I'll be back.
So I just want to know, page 4, another exception is insurance, because insurance is surveillance. And then page 4, line 5, violations are consumer product, consumer trade violations. The Attorney General has the same authority, and there is a private right of action, as Senator Rumsfeld,
Which already exists.
right, it already exists under the Consumer Protection chapter, that's, you can call this a consumer protection violation. And you say they have the same rights and authority, it gets
Right.
to the private right of action. If you don't want the private right of action, you have done that before. Said the private right of action does not apply. You have that option.
What are you thinking, Keem? The few of us that are left. What's your thought? What's your thought? This is the lean team.
One more law.
Well, I know, but this is consumer protection in a new world where a lot more of our information is now available.
It also suggests to me that one of the aspects of consumer protection would be a product that I sell to consumers to detect surveillance pricing and again,
Well,
it's spy versus spy.
well,
The one point I will make is I referenced the Agency of Agriculture. They have addressed dynamic pricing. They're gonna have to address surveillance pricing.
yeah,
And they're probably gonna wanna do it in a uniform way through the associations that they're working for. So if you're gonna go forward with this bill, I would request that you, or I would recommend that you talk to Mark Paquette at the Agency of Agriculture.
this is Mark Parquet.
Okay.
Does this make sense as something for us to further study and not act on, without?
When I first got into dynamic pricing, I went to Mark and Mark was like, oh, we want to deal with that. But let us go to this national association first to figure out how to do it in a uniform way. I think if you went to Mark with, we want to deal with surveillance pricing, he probably said, yeah, I want to deal with that too. Let me go to this national association and figure out how to.
So,
The other question is whether or not any other state is dealing with this.
Well, we've-
There are bills and there have been enforcement actions just on consumer protection as basically fraud. You know, one price is offered and the price has changed. I think a couple of grocery stores in Vermont have agreed to change their practices because of that. But not any specific surveillance pricing ban that I know
so let's get Mark in to talk about it with you so that you're both here together. I think it does make some sense, given how many other areas it touches, that it might make, and given that no other state, as far as I know, has already passed this. I'm always happy to be first if we've done all our homework, but this is, I think, just the beginning of this discussion. And we may want to talk to Mark Paquette, obviously, and see where he is and see what a thoughtful path forward might be, because it may be that we want to act on this next year after we get more information and we understand fully all the possible impacts.
It's also one that asks, say, NCSO.
Oh, yeah.
ESG as to whether or not
Oh, there,
there's a study group or a committee that's actually looking at the issue right now.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I do think, as I said, these agencies use these multi-state associations to try to find that uniformity on these types of issues. And I think that they will have to address this at some point.
yes. Dave,
Is there a reason, you may not know this, but is there, and let me just step back. I get it, and I support the concept. Any reason why services were not included? That's something that can also be, online, validated.
I think that's another thing to consider.
You know, when we were drafting the bill, frankly, we never talked about services. We focused on products, what was being offered for electronic consumer apps.
But I think it's a good consideration is going forward. Mike, who in addition to Mark would you suggest if we decide that we want to have this looked at more fully?
Well, I don't know who's in charge of retail, the retail.
Oh, yeah, the retail,
Anymore.
the grocers. What?
And Fox.
Ed Fox.
Ed Fox. Thank you. Is that the Vermont Retailers and Grocers Association now? That's Ed Fox? He hasn't been in this committee yet. Thank you, Carrie. Okay. And, yes, retailers and, okay,
Yeah.
great. Those are two good ones. I
Right.
think
Yeah, you get the regulator and the regulated.
the regulator and we try and get some. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mike? And Mike, think about that path. Because I think
Sure.
that might make some,
I mean, I can reach out to Mark if you would like.
that would be great.
Okay.
That'd be great, because I think we probably want to hear and make a decision about that, and we can include it in our, depending on what we decide to do. We could, if it was gonna be a study that we could charge ag with, for example, we could charge Mark with, we could then add that to our economic development bill
Okay,
as a consumer protection piece.
understood.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Have a good weekend.
So appreciate your help on this. Very interesting. Our first piece of real AI and intersection with the economy in here. Thank you. Carrie, why don't you come join us, because we have a moment and we would love to have you join us.
Thank you. I have some handouts for you.
And introduce yourself and tell us why you're here in the Economic Development Committee and why food matters in this wild world.
Okay, so I'm Carrie Taylor. I'm the Senior Manager of Government Relations for Vermont Food Bank. I do not usually get to join this committee, but Chair Clarkson was kind enough to give me a little bit of time today to make sure you all are in the know on Vermonters Feeding Vermonters, which is a farm purchasing program that we operate. And we're seeking budget adjustment funds through the Agency of Ag for that. So let me just pull up my testimony and get started.
For these, they have out by any
You
chance.
can,
I have plenty. Oh, yeah.
Two, one for the.
Yeah,
Oh, it's online.
I think that's
Main
two.
record and one.
It's not on YouTube. I wasn't sure. That's why I'm printing it right now.
Okay, great.
She has a copy. Karen has been in very close communication.
Great. Which I appreciate. We all appreciate.
So thank you for giving me a little bit of time this morning. I'm glad you had a few extra moments. I'm here to introduce you to our budget adjustment request and talk to you a little bit about the economic impact of the Vermonters Feeding Vermonters program. Vermont Food Bank is seeking 1.5 million in budget adjustment for FY26, which would fully fund the state portion of the Vermonters Feeding Vermonters program. It's what we were seeking last year during the budget process. We received $500,000 in the FY26 budget. Those funds were expended completely between July and October 6th. The scale of this program is much greater than $500,000. In the years when we were able to operate it at full capacity, it was about $2.3 to $2.4 million.
Got it. And you've actually, so far in the budget adjustment, you have what?
We have $400,000, which is great. And a wonderful starting point. And so I think I just want to underscore for this committee, the funding we're seeking directly supports farms' bottom line. Although Vermont Food Bank is the entity seeking that money, we are essentially spending all of those funds with Vermont farms. And the goal with this funding is to simultaneously support farms and the people across Vermont who use us and our network food shelves and meal sites, and direct distribution events, really a win-win for folks who are receiving this food at no cost to them. And that, I believe, is a big part of why this, the legislature chose to pass Vermonters Feeding Vermonters as a state grant program last year. It was Act 34 of 2025. As most of you know, I believe Vermont continues to experience food insecurity at an increased rate year over year. We are seeking to support farm viability through this, but also to address that food security rate for folks across the state. Through this program, Vermont Food Bank and our partners purchase Vermont-grown food directly from farms. Food is distributed in a variety of ways through our existing infrastructure, from food shelves, meal sites, direct distribution events at housing sites, schools, hospitals, and other locations. That food goes directly onto the tables of neighbors in all corners at no cost to them. These are folks in our communities who need food access support and cannot often afford to purchase local food for themselves. Local food's a little more expensive. If you're cash limited, you are making difficult choices whenever you shop. As you also know, farms were Vermont's first businesses, and
You're a first
agriculture,
entrepreneur,
first entrepreneurs, sorry.
which is sort of the umbrella we're seeing this under, because it doesn't really actually have any direct correlation to this committee's work, but we can certainly individually advocate for it as we may see fit with appropriations.
Yes.
And it certainly affects all of our individual food shelves and hospitals and
Yes, and agriculture is a really crucial economic sector for the state of Vermont.
economic sectors. So
Um,
that's our nexus here.
Yeah, and one fact that this committee will appreciate is that a study done by UVM in 2016 found that every dollar spent on local food purchase from Vermont Farm in this way adds an additional 60 cents to the local economy. So it has a 1.6 multiplier on any dollars contributed to this program.
We like multipliers.
I know, me too. It makes it make more sense. This program operates in 3 ways to maximize the capacity of our local farms. First is large scale direct purchasing. That is what the full $500,000 in FY26 has gone to so far. And if we receive just $400,000, it will also support that direct purchasing. What that means is that the food bank is able to purchase large quantities from farms who can deliver by, the truckload or on Gaylord pallets, really larger scale. And the reason we're seeking that money right now is because we're making those contracting decisions for this upcoming spring and summer growing season now. And I'll get into that a little more in a bit. The other 2 parts of this program are grants that we re-grant to our network partner organization to purchase at smaller scale from smaller local farms doing CSA, farms who do not have an 18-wheeler to deliver their food. They have a pickup truck or a Subaru. Really matching the scale of those partner organizations with the scale of the local farm to make sure that these dollars are getting as far out into Vermont communities as we can put them. And then there's a third portion for culturally responsive food purchases. And this is food purchased from key farm partners and going to specific network partners that we have to meet the food needs of cultural communities around the state, often new American populations who maybe have a special kind of melon that they use or a particular green that they're seeking, and we work with farms to grow those. I'm just going to go through a couple of the ways that this supports farm businesses, and then I'll leave some time for questions.
Great. And then
So forward contracting means that we are a guaranteed customer for farms. You may know that's how dairy works, right? Dairy knows that they produce X amount of milk and it's sold. That is not how it works for produce and vegetable farmers. Essentially, a farmer recently told me that he buries all of his money in the ground and then hopes that in the spring he can sell what comes out of it. And what we're really doing is
balance.
Yeah. What we're really doing is trying to create consistency and capacity there by saying we'll buy X amount from you. We can accommodate replacements and non-standard produce. So if we contract for 1,000 pounds of potatoes, we could take russets, we could take red potatoes, we could take white potatoes. If you're a commercial account and you forward contract for baking potatoes, you need russets. You can't take red potatoes. You can't take another type. We're very flexible in that way. For other produce, grocery stores often require standard sizes or picture perfect vegetables. We and our partners can take a bell pepper that is not perfectly red and perfectly rectangular, or a funky shaped potato. Everything that's in, that can be eaten, we can process through our system. We also give farmers efficiency through decreased processing costs. So we receive whole foods. We can receive those in bulk crates. We can receive those in giant Gaylord pallets that you can drive around with a fork truck. Farms don't need to process food to be cooked. They do not need to package it into smaller sizes. Apples are a good example of this. We can take huge Gaylord apples. We volunteers who can pack them into smaller sizes if needed, or we can send those to a partner organization who can put that Gaylord out and people can pick from that themselves. As opposed to, I need this in 3-pound plastic bags stacked in a certain way so that my shelvers can stock it. We also offer simplified distribution by means of farmers making one stop So instead of deliveries to little locations all over the place, farmers deliver it to our warehouse distribution centers. We have one in Brattleboro, one in Rutland, and one in Barry. And then we use our own existing network and system to redistribute that food across the state, saves the farms some money and maximizes capacity in both ends of the system. And I mentioned a little bit earlier, we're asking for the spending now because we are doing planning for farms. Farms are making
And as
decisions
businesses,
now.
we appreciate the need for them to plan and know what will then be purchased. So they're not just putting investment into the ground without knowing where it's being sold.
Yes, and a partner told me earlier this week, like, we're making our seed buying decisions right now. So we need to know how much you can contract for so that we know how much we can grow. So that is sort of the economic side of the program that I'm really happy to have a moment to
Right.
introduce you all to. And
So we have 400,000 in the BAA right now.
yes,
Good for our farm businesses to be able to plan. Which helps them.
yes, and this sets us all up for, continued continuity, and progress through this grant program.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Any questions for Carrie?
Just like a curiosity, and I'd love to ask some segment. I love it. But I was really glad to know when we went with Senate Education to visit some schools that they also are trying to do a lot of local meat purchasing, and that helps meat processor. Does this apply to meat purchase? I know that's usually a big request for food bank.
Yeah, the portion that we do of direct purchasing does not apply. We do not usually purchase meat with that money, primarily because we have other sources of meat. We get USDA meat from the TFAP program. There's donated meat through our Fresh Rescue program. We do eggs, which are a protein item that are in high demand. The grant part of this project, our partners can purchase meat. There's a partner in the Northeast Kingdom who buys like a cow, a whole cow. It's processed by USDA. They get the whole, all the boxes of meat and then distribute those. It does require a little bit more capacity because our partners need to have freezer capacity, and it would take up freezer space at ours. So there's some, capacity and logistical issues related to protein purchasing. But yeah, that's how we hope to make that protein piece work in here. Yeah, those re-grant pieces.
David?
No, I'll just add that I was absolutely impressed with food bank distribution points in Rutland, just the scale, the professionalism of the organizations, just unbelievably.
Yeah.
Efficient.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think that's a good point. Like, we're really just trying to add efficiency to two existing systems that are not always particularly efficient, right? But we have systems to make that better.
And we applaud that, obviously.
Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you, Carrie. Thank
Thank you
all.
for your time.
We will thank you, committee, for your patience and extension of faith in our committee's work in passing those two committee bills so that we will get them back. We'll begin hard work on those next week. We have some joint meetings planned both with House Commerce on data privacy, because we're going to get that bill back, and data brokers. We've got a couple of those bills coming at us once they come out of the House. So we're doing common education so we don't have to do it again, given how short our time is. So we'll be taking out, because we have the Tuesday morning, we sadly have very constrained time because we have.
Okay, sorry. Are they are going to the floor? Are we taking education before they go to the floor on those data bills?
Yeah, we're doing it next week when they've lined up all these people doing it next week, and they're going to be passing it out, and it'll be coming to us.
Okay. Probably good education, but things could change on the floor.
If it's coming back as the bill we passed, it wouldn't get recommitted to a committee. I think that's what your question is. So is this a different bill that's coming over to us, that H bill?
The data broker bill is coming at us, that we haven't had, that will come to us.
Okay.
And the data privacy bill, we did that share with the institutions because we didn't have time, as you'll recall, last year, and Wendy did. But it will probably go back there. I mean, I don't know. My guess is there will be changes given the House. Inevitably, there are changes.
So that, I mean, I'm just saying that bill could face some changes on their house floor.
Absolutely.
So I just don't want to get too attached to any language.
It's not attached to
I
language.
don't think we're attached to any language that's going on.
This is further education on both these subjects, which we all need, because we all need to be up to date and brought up to speed. But the committee bills will be sent to us either today or on Tuesday. And we're beginning work on those. After our vote on Tuesday, we have the Supreme Court nomination discussion and debate. And we may or may not have another. And
What
that,
is
we're going to start on Tuesday as a result.
is there a shared understanding of both committees getting possession of the data bills?
I haven't discussed it yet. You mean in the Senate? Haven't discussed that yet. That needs discussion. So, think about the consumer protection things we have in front of us. We will, I also we're, as you know, well, anyway, there's lots on our wall. We're going to have to prioritize further. Anything we can include in the bill, we have bills that we can combine, like our firefighters overtime and the nurses. We need to begin to think creatively about how we can either combine things that are priorities for us, or bid them adieu. I'm going to have Kiara send us out all bills so far that have been committed to this committee with their subject matter, so that, and you can look them up also, so that we can begin to prioritize. I'd love to make sure everybody gets a chance to prioritize what we want to try and take action on. And remember, we can also add things to bills that are coming to us from the House. So even if we don't get to it and explore it fully before crossover, there are things we can continue to work on after crossover. So I think that is it, unless anybody has something else at the moment. One thing I would like to do, because we didn't do it last session, or at least I don't remember. I'd love to do a committee dinner. So let's think about it.
We did a breakfast
We did a breakfast. Thank you. We did a creative breakfast.
because I'm better at
That's
breakfast
what we
than
did.
dinner.
We did a creative
Yeah.
breakfast. So we could do that again too,
Okay.
if you felt like it. But yes, we did our creative breakfast over at Cap.
Should we go off high or? I don't think people care about our.
Our social life is very exciting. Thank you, Kara. Let's go offline.
Pricing.
Yeah.